When you discover the music scene and you start taking some drugs, it's new, it's exciting. 2 years later, I started using it to escape. I was a functional drug addict, in a sense.
There are times where I've held back because I have so much shame.
As you keep getting older and the accumulation keeps growing because you're not sharing and not sharing, it gets heavier and heavier.
I remember just feeling like I wanted to disappear at that moment.
It just wasn't serving me anymore.
I made a budget and then I had to write a line of drugs on it, and I was like, shit.
I wasn't planning on quitting, and
I didn't realize at the time how much power it had over me.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Really excited. We're up here in Montreal. I got the chance to speak with Fabulous Fadi, or Fadi.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
You can address me as
Sir Fabulous Fadi.
We've known each other.
We've been here before. And Tony, you're joining us today, so I'm really thankful for you guys taking the time out to speak with me. I want to jump right into it and talk about kind of the main reason that we're all here and we came together. Unfortunately, the Montreal electronic community has lost someone, one of your dear friends, Gail, recently. And we connected online because Fadi and I have talked about mental health and electronic music before and our own struggles. And he brought you into the fold because there's a bunch of different synergies, I think, going on here. So I wanna talk about those. But first and foremost, I'm really sorry that you all have lost people in your lives recently, and one of them being Gail. So I just want to take a moment for her, if you guys wouldn't mind, just silence, and then we can talk a little bit more. So with that, I want to open up the floor and see how you all are doing since the loss.
I mean, the first few weeks were really foggy for me. Like the first month until we had our ceremony funeral, it felt surreal and I didn't quite believe it, and I was just going through her photos and everything, and it made me very emotional because I realized she was there from the very beginning of me being in the scene. Mm-hmm. I was finding pictures from all the way back 2012, 13, and she was actually the first person I met in one of our friend basement. So it made me very emotional, and it's only when we got to her ceremony and that it was beautiful, and you were there too, and it made me have a little bit of closure, but it was still surreal. And yeah, it's still mind-blowing for me, and I'm sad that we couldn't do more, so that's what hurts me the most, and we'll talk about it, but she was there for me through my hard time, so I wish she would have reached out when she was at the bottom.
Yeah, Gail was always very supportive. She, and when we first got into the music scene, she took care of us, and she gave us so much. And like he says, it's heartbreaking that we couldn't give back to her in her moment of need, and like Fadi, when the news came, it was a shock, and then I remember we saw each other after we found out at picnic, yeah. And I was just it felt like a bad dream, it was so cloudy, and then it's you're trying to make sense of it, and then you just keep questioning why, and it's, and I know that's when we talked about hey, we need to do something about this, we need to raise some awareness, because it can happen to anybody. Anybody can be in a moment of of struggle, and it's a split-second decision, but that there's no comeback from, and you know, Gail taking her own life is my first experience with losing someone to suicide. There's no you know, there's no right way to like process it. It's just like it's a shock, and it's wild because like you said, like I can think back to so many moments with Gail. I can still hear her voice, the way she says my name.
I remember Mr. Tony.
Mr. Tony Casca. And I don't know how to say it in English, but jour au lendemain.
From one day to the other.
Yeah, it just that's it. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's no way to like say thank you for everything she's done for me. When I decided to like start working in the music scene 2 years ago, a bit over 2 years ago, she was so supportive, and then she came and supported all the artists I worked with, and then kept pushing me and believing in me. And it's this, I guess this what we're doing now is a way to say thank you to her, to honor her, you know.
Yeah. I got the pleasure of meeting her a few times. I didn't know her nearly as well as you all do, but I got the pleasure of meeting her definitely at her non-show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure she was at John Digweed.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I saw her there as well. And I came up this past February in 2024 because Anthony of Vision is a friend of mine as well, and she was there. She's supporter of Anthony, and she's a big supporter of a lot of electronic music artists, DJs. She's like a true and tried like member of the community. And when I heard the news, I couldn't believe it because I had seen her pretty recently after that as well. So while I don't have the connections and ties that you all do, I've met her and only had great things to say about her.
She remembered you because she talked about you at A-Vision, and she's the type of person that you're gonna meet her like one time and she's gonna remember you and have good things to say about you.
we had a great conversation. We were hanging out in the booth and I was like, man, he's great. And she's like, I know, I love him. So I was like, we're dancing. It was a great time. But my goal here is to, because Medtronica focuses on electronic music and mental health, unfortunately, people take their lives. And my goal is to raise more awareness and provide resources and talk about it to reduce the stigma. I know Fadi and I have talked about this before, where, what are some things that we can do to help people, like you're talking about. I wish she would have reached out. And, I've had dark times in my life. I've had suicidal thoughts. I really thought at one point, I would just take my own life because it's easy. The pain that I'm suffering and right now or in that moment is easier to take the way out. And I think like, what can we do to help people who may be in those situations? I don't know if I have the answer, but I know that I feel the same way you do. It's like, if somebody's struggling like they are in those moments, I will do anything within my power to help them.
I think a lot of it comes from people are scared to reach out because it's if you're reaching out to a friend like, hey, I'm thinking some dark thoughts of like taking my own life, like it's heavy, and people are going to close up instead of sharing that. And then, but we did our first post together this week, and I got so much feedback from people saying thank you, and then people even shared their story with me. And I think just what we're doing now, just every single person struggles at one point in their lives, and it goes down a dark path. And I think we have to just break that, like you're not alone. The number one thing you need to tell people is like, you're not alone. Reach out to a friend, because your friend possibly went through something like a dark period as well, and like they know what you're going through. But sometimes I feel like in this society we don't talk about our emotions enough. We don't talk about the real shit enough. We sugarcoat it. The same way like we plaster our lives on social media, but it's all like perfect picture, perfect angle, perfect this. Like you have a perfect life on social media. You start getting this disconnected from the struggles, the real challenges of being alive. There's so much that we keep to ourselves, and we have to just start breaking that. Just like, let's share more. Let's be more honest. Let's have real discussions, heart to hearts. Like, open up to your friends, you know. And by doing that, and slowly, more people are gonna feel comfortable to bring this sensitive subject to their friends. You know.
I think that's a really good point. You know, there are times where I've held back because I have so much shame attached to whatever it is I'm going through. And we'll talk about this more, but whether it's like an identity crisis, whether it's previous trauma, for me it was, I don't know that I can bring this to somebody because maybe no one else has experienced it. But guess what? There are other people out there that have experienced what I was going through. And I found by opening up about that, I was able to, one, not feel as alone, and I was able to like seek refuge and comfort in other people's experiences. And it made the shame, specifically for me, feel less heavy. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not a unique case. I'm not ill-equipped. There are solutions. Even when I didn't have the answers, I had people that helped guide me to those areas to like go maybe look under what rock I needed to look under to find some answers.
Yeah, I know I had like a little dark period after March when my dog passed, and then I got a back injury, and just like things were not going well. I felt like things were collapsing around me, and I noticed I have a pattern of like not reaching out to people because I don't want to feel like a burden, you know. And I think instead I just suffered through my pain by myself, you know. And then luckily I've cut back a lot my drug use over the last couple of years. But if I was, I'd say, consuming the same way I was consuming it like 4 or 5 years ago, I don't know where I'd be at right now today, you know. Like, I might probably still be alive, but just like in a darker place, like way darker, and like probably like self-destructing my entire life, you know. And that's the other thing. It's like when you're suffering, how you escape, you know, it's tricky. It can be drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, whatever. And then if you were just escaping all the time, we're never actually going to the source. You know. And I think we all have periods where we just escape, and then it's very easy to get to like that dark, like, you know, the dark thoughts and the dark path, and then like feel like there's no way out, you know. And then if you, like you mentioned, like you're in pain every day, and you start to, you know, consume drugs, you cloud your judgment, you cloud your mind, you can't focus, you're not sleeping well. Do that for a couple of weeks, and it's going to be very easy to get to suicidal thoughts.
I think what's tricky too with social media, you mentioned it, and the way we're being brought up, we suppress a lot of like negative emotions. Like growing up, like being angry, being upset, being negative emotion are not something we are encouraged to show and to like show around. So even with social media being mostly positive posts and like everything's perfect, it's easy for you to feel shame when like you feel those emotions, and you don't feel like it's a safe space to post like your real feelings because everyone is showing another side. So it's really like refreshing when we finally do, and we see that there's a lot of people actually wanting that and like that are really connecting with those posts. So I think it's important to break that idea that everything is perfect and you can't post like your real emotions online.
And you know, growing up as men in the 90s was don't show your emotion.
Yeah, I mean, still to this day, there's a lot of like, I go deep on some, for better or worse, Instagram, TikTok comments, and I see teenage guys all the way up to guys in their 60s who's like making what some people would call toxic masculinity comments, like, no, don't show your emotions, no, just keep moving. It's like, you're a human being. You have emotions. You just need to figure out the best way to process them or even be taught how to process them. Because for me, I wasn't taught how to process emotions, and I feel like a lot of men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know personally, like I've the last, let's say, 18 years of my life have not necessarily been easy. There's things that I haven't really shared with even close friends, but I didn't know, I didn't even know how to process let's say the sadness or the grief that I had. I was just like, let's push it to the side because I don't know how to process this. And now it's like recently, I feel like there's more spaces for us, especially men, to like start opening up about our feelings and our our struggles, and yeah, it's just I think like just that, like how can you communicate without being judged or feel like a burden and stuff like that. And it's by more discussions, by more openness, we create more safe spaces, and then for people to feel like, okay, I can go and talk to someone, or sometimes just go somewhere and like you just feel like you're in a safe space can help you like process things too,
Yeah. Get your nervous system under control. I think breathing helps a lot with that. I think journaling helps a lot, but also finding people who are safe. And I think for me, I wasn't taught how to do that. Like, how do I know if this person's safe or this friend is safe or they're not? And I think for me, it was testing a little bit like, hey, I'm going to share this pebble with you. How do you react to me sharing this? Okay, if I share that with you, I can share a little bit more. Versus like, if I share this little thing with you, if you just pass it off as like, keep your head down and you don't want to engage in discord with me, okay, you're maybe not emotionally available. And not that you're not a safe person, you just aren't my person to share this with. So for me, that's what worked. And I ended up finding certain people that, hey, I can bring these things to. Obviously therapy as well, but not everyone wants to go see a therapist, and that's okay. But if you want to bring things to certain people, I think testing is a good way to start.
I think it's important, as you said, to find a way to like process those negative emotions, because even for me, when there was like those first big struggles in my life, and I was like, you probably noticed when you met me, I was always the guy that was smiling, and I was never talking about like my issues and negative things.
It was very mysterious with the first
very mysterious. But I was always smiling, and even like I'll talk later about those struggles. But even when everything was going down, I was like smiling, and that's because I was never taught how to express my emotions, and like my mother was very like, in terms of emotions, she was very, let's say, not showing them very much. So that's what I was taught. And when it got down to me struggling, when I found substance, it was like an easy way, let's say, to numb myself without having to express anything. So that was good, like at first. So it's important to find other ways to channel it, because there are ways like substance that can be very attractive at first, but slowly will become more dangerous.
And I think also like as we get older, right? Because let's say, I'm 36 now. Like I mentioned, the last 18 years there's been some real challenges. There's an accumulation. And then as you keep getting older and the accumulation keeps growing because you're not sharing, it gets heavier and heavier. And I think that's why it's crazy, but there's people like we call functional alcoholics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just because they're no, but like
it's real.
Yeah, it's a real term.
And I was working for the government. Not anymore, so I can talk about this. But it's just I was a contributing member of society. Just got used to like taking MDMA on the weekends and then barely having it down anymore, and just like because it became so part of my routine that you add that over a couple of years, like
it builds up.
Yeah,
It compounds.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should say like I was an addict. I'm not averse to the term or everything, but I was using every weekend. I was taking MDMA every weekend to avoid things, and I before we go into that, I I want to just preface, like, yes, there are functional alcoholics. Like, I used to live in New York City, and drinking culture, and just for a matter throughout all of society, in my opinion, I find drinking culture is like a socially acceptable way to numb yourself. And when I was living in New York, having 4, 5, 6 drinks a night was like not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're doing that 3 or 4 nights a week, like by the book, it's now functioning alcoholic. But I want to, because you both touched on very interesting points, I want to go into it, is when you were going through hard times, you had said, like, if I kept up that drug use, I would be in a different place. Have either of you found that when you were going through a tough situation that your drug use or interest in drugs went up by any, like, measure? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, I can start. So, well, I have to put it in context. So my first contact with substance was after a big trauma too. And I never linked it until like a year ago, so very recently. So we talked a lot about my traumas. I won't say the whole story, but when I was 22, I don't think we talked about that in the other interview, but when I was 22, I was going through my coming out, like, really casually. Everything was going pretty well. Like, I started coming out when I was 18. So I was like coming out to my friends and some like really close people, but I wasn't ready to come out to my family because I was still living there at home. And when I was 22, my sister, I think she saw like something on social media, and she was like a heavy drinker. She also had traumas in our childhood. So she was a heavy drinker her whole life. So she came back home and she just like I think my mom was angry at her. So she just went on a spree to like out me. So she started screaming like, "Did you know that Fadi was gay?" Something like that. And I remember just like feeling like I wanted to disappear at that moment. And that was like a big trauma for me now in retrospective, but I didn't realize it was at first. So that went on, like I didn't really speak about it to my mom, and it's really like my coming out journey went like downhill. So I was feeling pretty ashamed like for years. Like you probably saw it, like I was saying I was gay, but I wasn't openly like talking about meeting guys. I wasn't like really talking about it. I wasn't wearing like what I wear today. I wasn't comfortable at work, so it really messed me up for like years. And 22 years old was the year I started using drugs. So I didn't click until recently that it had a link, but at first it was like good, like it was in terms of going out with friends to enhance our experience. But as we said, like times and life gets hard, so at first it's all good and it was under control.
It's fun at first, right?
It's fun.
When you discover the music scene and you start taking some drugs, it's new, it's exciting.
Exactly. The first year it was fun, it was under control, but then other things happened, so like my consumption went up. It's like a vicious circle. Other things happened because also my consumption was going up, and I got the first major thing. Let's say I got it into a DUI in 2016, and that was a major stress for me. So I was 26. That was 4 years after. So let's say 22 to 26 was under control, but not so much.
I think about like by 2018 and 19, in the moment I was like, I think under control.
Exactly.
I got this, And then honestly, I remember when the pandemic hit and I was like, thank you, universe.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, because it's funny because I got into drugs because I was trying to save money. I was moving to Australia in 2015, and then I went to a music festival and they were charging like $11 for a beer, and I was like, holy shit, this is too expensive. Like, I need to save for my trip, so I turned to drugs. And again, back then I was using it just to enhance the party. You're at a festival, you want to have some fun. And then it was like 2 years later that like I started using it to escape, you know?
Was there like a switch in there?
Yeah, it was just like things in my life like were going in one direction and it all collapsed on itself, and I had to like rebuild my life. And then because I was like working a lot, when I needed to go out often to just like relieve the stress and the buildup, I was like doing like 60 to 65, 70 hours a week every week, just trying to rebuild my life. And then at first it's like, okay, I'll go to stereo, dance it off, and then you feel good. It's like, okay, the crazy work week is behind me. You dance for hours and hours. It's therapeutic, right? Every time I love like long sets and marathon sets because it's like I get to release all the energy inside me that's like either negative or tense. But then also when you're dancing, and even like for those long hours, you process a lot of stuff in your mind too.
100%.
I problem solve.
Dance floor.
Yeah, there was times where I'm just like, fuck, I can't figure this out. What should I do? You know what? Let me go stereo.
I mean, there are studies, because I'm like nerded out about this. Bilateral movements and thought processing light up more parts of your brain, and it allows you to process things more. And dancing it's proven that dancing is the best thing that you can do for your mental health, for like releasing stuff, right? Movement, you're surrounded by people, there's music, you're engaged. For the brain and mental health, like, it makes total sense.
Yeah, this whole past summer, it's like every time I've been going out, solutions, plans are just coming to me all the time, and it's like, it's wild. It's pretty crazy.
But to answer your question, 2016 was probably the year I consumed the most, and that was the year I got into the DUI. So a lot of stress, and the consumption went skyrocketing. There's no doubt about it. And I didn't tell anyone about that DUI until it got solved like 2 years later. So I coped, except Gail. So I have to mention that. Gail was the only person I told, and she referred me to a lawyer, so she helped me a lot. So I went 2 years of big stress, and consumption was the easy way out.
I remember seeing also the consumption growing. It's we started taking crazier risks.
Yeah.
We started mixing stuff that should never be mixed. It was just
being reckless.
Yeah, we were really reckless with it, And then what I noticed how for me the pattern like is like 2018 is when I started like consuming it every weekend, every second weekend. And then, at the beginning, it's like, okay, maybe one pill of MDMA, and then that's it. But then as you keep doing it, you need more and more, your tolerance is going up. And then it's like, oh, now I discovered ketamine. And then you start adding that to the mix. And then it just became like so routine that like, you keep pushing the
envelope.
It's, and then I remember like I said, like when the pandemic hit, I was like, thank you. I was like, because I couldn't even stop the train, even though I knew I was like going into potentially a wall. And then just also because it's like I was going to travel, go to festivals. I was just like, there was so much music in my life, and then I couldn't stop. I couldn't bring down the consumption. It just became so normal. Like, and that's the thing that sometimes scares me of the music scene is you can be around like the really hard stuff, cocaine, ketamine, all these things, and it's so casual. It's like having a glass of orange juice.
It's become normalized a lot.
Yeah.
Even in house parties, and like it's something that doesn't shock you anymore.
No, and even now, like when there's times I go to like these big events, and I'm just like, people are doing bumps on the dance floor. That's like and like a lot of people. I mean, it's not just like that one or two person. It's like no, it's just like drug use has become very normalized, and which is fine because like I do believe that drugs do serve a purpose, especially the party favor ones, like the ones that that makes music sound better, or like but it's just the balance is so the line is very thin. You can fall on either side.
It's a razor sharp line, pun intended. And I just want to say, like, I don't advocate for or against drug use. It is, you're not going to stop the waves from hitting the shore. I think in a medicinal setting, they can save people's lives. On psychedelic side, I think Portugal's done a great job with decriminalizing it in their whole program. And you're not going to stop people from using, but I think like having it in either a regulated format or testing so people know what they're getting and it's safe. So I just want to say that. And I also want to say that it has become normalized. And the question I asked myself, because I was consuming every weekend in 2018, living in New York, going out, and I was running from some traumas that happened to me, and I wasn't aware, like I didn't figure this out until like, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago recently when I started like digging, because when the pandemic hit, same thing. My train was going super fast, so much music in my life. I had to literally move out of New York City. I was like, I got a remote job. I'm getting out of New York. Not because just drug use, couldn't afford it. It was very expensive. But I was consuming every weekend, and I needed to remove myself from a situation where it just wasn't serving me anymore. And I thank God I had the awareness to be like, okay, I need to stop this. But it was so normalized. Oh, we're going out. We're going to do M. We're going to, just be out all night. And it was just like a casual thing. I think about doing that shit now. I'm like, no way. No way. Yeah, I'm older, but like I value sleep more. I value things more. And I think it's because I've looked underneath those rocks that maybe I wasn't aware of to be like, okay, I was like, some people use alcohol or food or athletics or whatever. I was using this to cope with my trauma from my dad being abusive, from not getting like certain things from him and having a sexual identity crisis, or just trying to be numb from being taken advantage of in business and losing a ton of money, right? For me, it was a culmination of those three. It's like, I don't have the tools on how to process this, and I don't know where to look, and I'm ashamed to go ask people. And I try MDMA for the first time, and it's like, what is this feeling? And then I associate that feeling where, okay, I feel great, and I don't feel as bad as I do in my normal day-to-day life. So I look forward to the weekends to get out of the current skin or bad situation that I'm feeling. And I can't imagine I'm the only person out there that this has happened. So I want to bring awareness to this for anybody that, if you realize that you're over-consuming, or if you realize that you're taking more than you should, or your consumption's going up, like, for me, it was, I needed to ask myself, why am I consuming like this? And am I running from anything? Because I had a conversation recently with a friend. We're talking, he's like, no matter what, at the end of the day, when you wake up the next morning, whatever problems you're trying to avoid, they're going to be there next to your bedside when you wake up. So it's probably going to be easier, and you're going to have more energy and strength to fix those problems now than like continuing to use drugs or substances and try and avoid them, because they're not going anywhere until you get to the root of it. So I wanted to share that, because if there's anyone out there that's watching, listening, and you notice that you're consuming more, or you're around people and you just feel something's off, it may be time for you to ask the question, what are my intentions?
I think it's very interesting, and I resonate with what you say, because trauma, we don't realize we're living it until like years later sometimes, and we have to take that step back. So it's really hard to like connect something, to take that time to connect like a consumption or anything to a trauma that you're living right now. It's really hard. So I think we all had similarities that when we started consuming, it helped us. Even for me, and even for a lot of people, it served like a positive purpose. Like it made me feel more accepted in the music scene. I felt like I belong. So I met friends. At first, it served like a positive outcome. It's just that with time, that outcome becomes, you want to replicate it. So you want to live it like every day, or like at first it's every weekend or every month, and then you want to add more. and it becomes dangerous when sometimes some things aren't happen to your life during that increasing consumption, because you know that this is gonna make you feel better. And for me, at first it was under control, but I was adding a little bit more every week and every year. So when that first big hardship hit in 2016, I was already like ingrained that drugs were good for me to make me feel good. So for me it was automatic. Okay, I'm just gonna consume more and that's gonna help me. And I thought it did, but it just made everything a little bit more, as you said, hard to like handle. And I probably didn't take the best decisions to handle that. But it's hard to take that step back, and I realize a lot of people may be feeling that because they're just on autopilot.
Exactly. Like, I feel like when it came to me, it's the drug use was occasionally at first, you know, like in most people, it's occasionally. And then there's a, you know, crazy summer ahead, you start doing it like almost every weekend. And then you don't stop. And then just every time you start going out, you keep consuming. But I remember thinking to myself, why am I getting high every single time?
What?
I'm like, this is.
So I think this is a really crucial part, and I don't mean to cut you off, but what was it that switch that was like, why am I consuming? What made you have an awareness to ask the question?
When I noticed that, let's say before, it's like, you know, one of my favorite DJs is coming, I'm like, oh, you know what, like, I'm gonna do some M, maybe, you know, sprinkle some ketamine and just like really trip out to his style of music. And then it was like, you know, the drugs were there to like enhance the night, you know, just to take me a bit somewhere else in my mind and have some fun. And then when it just became routine, and it was just like, okay, now I'm doing this all the time, not just for my favorite DJ, but even for like anybody. And it's just like so normal, and it just became, and then I'm like, why? And then also I started looking like, how much money am I spending on drugs? Like, and it's like, and it's all these things. Like I remember like when I was trying to buy my place, you know, I was working a lot, and you know, I was using stereo and drug use to like escape my high stress levels. I made a budget, and then I had to write a line for drugs on it, and I was like, shit, I have a drug use budget line.
I had the same freak out. It's like, what the fuck? In 2020, I had to
milk, eggs, MDMA, butter.
I had mortgage, because like when I bought my place and I made my new budget, I'm like, okay, I'm getting a mortgage now, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like, I spend more money on this, and I'm like, oh shit, like I need the like, insurance, drug use, and I was like,
it's funny. I think it's kind of humorous because you found drugs because you were like, I don't want to pay $11 for a beer, so you'd be like, all right, you know, pills are cheaper than that, and now you're like, well, at this point, not now, but like at that point in the journey, you're like, what? I have a whole budget now because I'm not saving money.
It was no longer just an occasional pill here and there. It became like, dude, remember, like this is crazy, but I used to walk into his place and just throw $100 on the table. I'm like, whatever you guys, I'm just like, whatever you guys, I'm in. It's just like, I would walk in and just throw $100, just like that.
But it's interesting, it's the same thing for me. I became aware it was maybe problematic, but not at a point that I was willing to do anything. Same as you, like at first it was going out for music, and that was my rule, but then it started going into the house parties, and I would almost prefer the after party than the actual event.
Cause after parties were wild.
Yeah, because there was more drugs, and it started. The drugs started to be more like the focus of the after party, I'd say. And slowly, it even became for me a habit during the week. So I would like invite people over during the week just to have that. I was telling myself I'm not by myself, so I was like inviting people. But still, I was doing drugs like on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, then alcohol during the week. So it's very like, it doesn't come like in one. One
It keeps
shot.
up on you. It keeps
Yeah,
up on
very
you.
slowly.
I think that's a really good point, right? Some people say, oh, gateway drugs. I don't necessarily believe in that. I'm more on the camp or the school of thought where it's like trauma. And I'm also not a psychologist, not a doctor, so don't take this with a grain of salt, but I'm only speaking from my experiences. When I've had a traumatic experience, there has been something there that I've used to cope for that traumatic experience when I didn't have the tools. And it isn't one thing, it's one and then the other, and just
Progression.
just like like after time goes by, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got wrinkles in my face. Like, how those get there? It's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm doing 3 things rather than just one, and like it slowly becomes normalized and creeps up on you.
It's crazy. We used to have this thing called the 7 heaven. The 7 steps to heaven, and it's like I noticed, I'm like, we're doing 7 different things in one
Yeah, it's
night.
concoction. Yeah.
You know, and I used to justify it by being like, okay, well, I'm taking a little bit of speed to start the night, and then I'll do a little bit of MDMA, but then while waiting for the MDMA to kick in, I'll do some ketamine, and then once the M comes up and starts coming back down, I'll go smoke a joint to bring it back, but then I'll do a bit more speed, and then like I remember like there's nights I'm like, like the next day I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like it's like just like, and the thing is I was like lucky because I was at a good place in my life, you know. I was like buying my place, working, you know, making good money, and just like,
So you had all these like social signs of success and like stability that were like reinforcing like you're okay.
Yeah, because like I had my life together, you know,
On paper.
yeah, everything was great, and then but let's say I had gotten fired, and you know, like suddenly now there's a financial stress, I have to find a new job, all this, because of the way I was consuming when things were good. If things became bad but I still was in that mindset, I would have went down a hole so fast, because then I would have even probably increased. I was already using a lot to, like, you know, I would have probably even heightened the usage even more, because now it's like, oh no, I need to numb myself now. Before it was like drug use to release, now it's I need to numb. And that's where it becomes dangerous, you know. And the drugs or even alcohol, you know, like, dude, we also used to drink a lot. We used to
Drinking was, for me, was the number one thing. Drinking.
so much white wine.
But I just want to continue on what you said, because you said if I got fired. For me, like I shared it this week, my breaking point was losing my job in 2020. It was a big year for me. Like I lost my father, my brother, and I lost my job. So that was the moment that I had these thoughts, suicidal thoughts. And I remember at that time the consumption went up, but it was so, like, I was really at the bottom of the barrel, so I had to take a step back. So there was no denial that like my life was going apart. So reaching that point made me finally have to go see a doctor for the first time, psychologist, psychiatrist, everything, like for the first time in my life. And I just remember, like, when I was going through these thoughts, Gail was a very important person at that moment. Like, I shared a lot and she helped me a lot. Just having that person really, I think, saved me. And I don't want to get into like the thoughts, but it's crazy. Like, you just drive and you have like a thought, would it be easier if I just went over?
Yeah,
I
run
had
this
those
car.
thoughts.
Oh, there's a tree. I'm just gonna run this car into there and unclick my seatbelt before I hit the
So
gas.
I didn't have a plan, but I thought about these things and I felt like really scared. And it took like few weeks, few months to.
Because it's what I find is crazy about this whole thing. It's like how easy it could be just to take your own life.
Yeah.
I thought about it, I'm like, how would I do it? You know, and I was like, I'll probably like pop 10 MDMAs and then like do 2-3 grams of ketamine and go in a K-hole and then just let the M's overdose me while I trip in my mind, and I'll go quietly. It'd be a nice way to go, but it's so fucked up to say like, oh yeah, I guess dying that way. Maybe I'll do it at like 90 and die if I'm dying from like some disease. This is my way out. But like, I'm like, it's so fucked up that like you think about how to do it.
Yeah, if you're at the point of thinking, there's some questions to be asked.
Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah.
And I want to talk. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. What were you gonna say?
I'm fine.
So I want to talk about that because we've all been there. I've been there, and I think it's, if you're having those thoughts, it's not something to be ashamed of. I don't want to speak for all of humanity, but we're human. So a lot of people have those thoughts. I don't think anybody's immune to having those thoughts. And there are a lot of contributing factors that can cause this, right? And we were talking about this offline before, where it's like, we live in a world now where it's very easy with all of the influx of information. I'm not going to blame social media because I think it gets enough of a bad name and I don't want to beat that dead horse. But we have information at our fingertips, right? Like you were saying, before, I grew up, I'm 33, and before when 9/11 happened and there were troops overseas and people were talking about beheadings, that was like kind of first when videos were being able to be uploaded at like crowdsourced. And like you could see it was graphic, but that was kind of the beginning of it. Now we have.
You had to go find it.
You had to go find it, and it was like.
Because I remember like, oh my god, there's a beheading. Let me go.
Yeah,
I watched it.
Yeah,
I was like, I was curious.
Yeah, you gotta go find links, blogs. It's not readily available. Now you can flip your phone open to a platform, and you're seeing, like you said, children being killed.
And we're forced because you see the feed and you don't have a choice.
When the Russia-Ukraine war started, I remember like watching the war on my cell phone, watching troops go shooting each other, killing each other, and I was just like, oh shit, we can actually see this now.
Yeah.
Like we're watching it in real time, and nothing prepares you for it, and it's crazy.
It's adding a big level of stress.
Exactly. So that's where I'm going with this is, if you've already got some stuff that's gone in a way that isn't positive in your life, if you already had some negative events in your life happen, you lose your job, you lose a friend, all of these unfortunate life events that either happen or, like things that happen things happen in life and we can't prevent it. But on top of that, you have the wars are going on. Innocent kids are getting killed. You're seeing everybody's life that seems perfect, right? And I'm just naming a few. There's a million other things we can name, right? There's so many things that I'm forgetting and not naming. But you stack each and every one. I can't get approved for a mortgage, right? I don't like the job I'm currently at. I don't have a car right now. I can't go out and see my friends. I'm not able to afford to go out and even buy a coffee, right? I have to eat ramen, like whatever it is. I have to move back home to my parents' house. There can be things there that stack up in shame, and on top of all the other things that are out there, it's like it's very easy for somebody to be like, "What the fuck is the point of living?
Yeah.
Why are we here? If this is like my current life and the situation."
And it's interesting you say that, because I wanted to talk about how, you and I both remember June 2022. We talked about like we wanted to do things. We wanted to like do things we were passionate about. I started like working in music. You launched like your blog more officially, and that's where you got the name Fabulous.
Officially.
But interestingly enough, because I had maybe a good paying job, but it wasn't fulfilling, and then like just I was in this routine where I was like I needed more from life. And then when I started working on something I actually really cared about, I told myself, hey, if you're gonna do this, you need to be a better version of yourself because you don't want to fail this. And then that's where I cut back on drinking, and then cut cocaine out of my life, and then all these things, because I was like, no, I want to succeed, and to succeed I need to be healthy, I need to get my rest, I need to be optimal.
Can't be at the after hours on a Wednesday.
Or we've all seen this shirt, like, don't invite me to the after party.
Yeah.
I was guy at Mr. After Party, Now it's like people are talking about after parties. I'm like, if there's only food involved, I'm down.
You mean dinner?
Like maybe a joint and we get some pizza and some wings or whatever. But like, we did like sometimes 24-hour benders after the event itself.
Mm-hmm.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
It just, and sometimes I feel like that's, like you said, like the world right now is dark, it's heavy, cost of living. There's so many factors right now that's making life hard. Climate change too, that makes you like feel like hopeless for the future. And then I know for me, what helped me was working on a passion project that like I really cared about. And funny enough, it was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. I was so scared of failure because I really cared for the project, that I knew it's what I really wanted to do. That fear confirmed to me, like, no, I want to do this. Like this is part of who I am. And then when I decided like to dive in, and then just like good things started to happen, I was like, oh, this is actually working out. Like, and every couple months I would be like cutting back on toxic behaviors that I had just became normal for like, I don't know, 10, 20 years. I started drinking at 18. Like I started really drinking at 18 because I was in Lebanon when Israel attacked after Hezbollah kidnapped some soldiers. I remember like I was sitting on the waterfront watching the airport get bombed. A couple days later, like my parents were going to the embassy and a bomb blew like right next to us. Like the whole building shook. I ran into because they were coming back, and like longest half an hour of my life, I'm like, did my parents just go? Because like the highway they were on got hit. And then when they finally showed up, like my dad was laughing because he's like, well, we've lived this for so many years, but my mom and my cousin were like crying in the back, and I was like, thank God they're good, like, but it really, it was close. It was a close call. And I remember thinking to myself, because my older brother at that time was going through hardships, and then we're 4 siblings. And like, I was like, and the just watching the road, hoping to see my parents' car pass by, like coming back home. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, if my parents are gone, like, I gotta take care of my younger brother, my younger sister. I started spiraling, and then we got like smuggled out the country to escape the war. And like, while we were like, being smuggled out, like I saw some bodies and stuff like that. And then I came back to Canada, and like back then there was people, I can only talk about it, but no one really understood it, because it's like now we can see it. So like now again, like that's what I find a bit crazy, is this full circle with like Israel and Lebanon like, again, and it's just like I didn't realize at the time like how much trauma I had from that. I was 18 years old, but I remember when coming back from Montreal, I was like, guys, like that's why I became really positive, because I was like, we're so fucking lucky. Like I can get up, want to go eat Korean food, African food. Like I want to go on a hut. I could do anything I want here. I really, when we had to leave Lebanon and leave the family behind, I remember telling my dad, like, I don't want to go. Like, this is not fair to them. Like, we can escape the safety while they're still stuck having to deal with potentially bombs falling anywhere. And then that's why I became really a positive person, because I was like, we have such privilege here, But I could have came back and just went also like in a dark path, It's crazy how
Yeah, and it's interesting you said again, and I think we all said it. You lived like a pretty intense experience, a trauma, and you didn't realize you were living a trauma. I think it's something that a lot of people live, like we all have like, and I don't like when people come to me and they say like, oh, like I haven't had trauma like you. Everyone has their own struggle, and there's not let's say.
Yeah, there's no barometer.
Exactly. So every trauma is important, and it doesn't matter how you think it's big or not, it affects you like in the long term. And yeah, I just thought it was interesting that you said you lived that and you didn't realize it was a trauma.
No, I was just like, came back here, went back to my old life.
Yeah.
Like
You
nothing
know, but
happened.
it's crazy because we were supposed to be in Lebanon for 4 weeks, and the first 2 weeks, crazy enough, that was the first time I went to a rave. The 2 weeks, like we were supposed to be in Lebanon for 4 weeks, and then went to go see Paul Van Dyke in this fucking massive warehouse. I'm 18 years old, and like my older brother is the one who introduced me to electronic music, and then so we all went, and I like walked into this like massive warehouse, like all the lasers and the light show, and I'm like, whoa, this world's sick. Like, this is awesome. And like 3 days later is when the first bomb fell. You know, so it was like a peak of like hype and excitement about life, and then just like, oh shit, the darkest side of humanity, I guess, with all these wars. And then when we finally got back to Montreal, it was just like, okay, that happened. But now I'm going back to school, go back to, you know, college, and just like study again, and just like, and it was just part of me, but it was just like tucked away.
Yeah, it's how do you even deal with that, right? It's two polar opposites. It's the darkest part of humanity, and then like complete freedom, and the people in the complete freedom in Canada. Not saying all people in Canada, but you're coming back to an environment where no one's understanding the struggles that you're going through. So how can you share that with them if they're not going to understand you? And you're in this like catch-22. You're in this like, where do I go? How do I process? I don't have the tools. How do I get help? You're kind of set up for failure in that situation. And I think in those times where there aren't resources and there isn't a roadmap, we're subconsciously living it, we are vulnerable to find things that are easy to grab, whether it's drugs, whether it's porn, whether it's food, whether it's whatever it is. And I mean, I don't know if you all have had experiences with this, but what I'm trying to get at is what is something that we can give people to be like, okay, I'm unconsciously dealing with a trauma.
I think one of the problems right now, like with society, is that it's so fast paced. People don't really have the time to reflect. You know, like everyone's trying to like get ahead and like to build a life, and life has gone super fast. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I look at my calendar, I'm like, what the fuck? It's like it's never ending. I'm like, I have to do this, then that, and the times I actually like healed the most is when I slow down.
Were you forced to slow down, or was there an outside force that like was like, nope, you have to deal with this now?
I think just so one of my friends launched this ambient we call it a lie down rave, where it's like just like we're listening to ambient music and everyone's just lying down, you're coloring and stuff like that. And every single time I went to that musical event, I made so much progress because I was just like, I slowed down and invited stillness in my life and was able to like talk to myself. You know what I mean? And then funny enough, I was still I used drugs sometimes, and I was just like, hey, let me dive in, let me take a bit of mushrooms and like face it.
And I want to clarify with that, because psychedelics are being researched heavily in the therapeutic setting and therapeutic purposes for stuff like this and introspection. So I want to just distinguish that from like recreational drugs, like what people classify as like drugs, cocaine, ketamine, MDMA, versus like they're still labeled as drugs, but some people call them plant medicine, some people call them research chemicals, some people call them healing ceremonies. But the point I'm trying to make is you purposefully made time for you to check in with yourself. Yeah. And I think there's different ways people do that. Sometimes it's people going for a run, people going to go just meditate, people going on, to a bike ride, or, having a therapy session. So I think that's important. You made time for yourself.
Yeah. With that kind of event where it's like, let's say I'll go deeper with it because of the mushroom use, but also like I integrated yoga into my life.
Amazing.
Like, but it's interestingly enough, it was like when I had my back injury, I had to use yoga to recover.
Okay. So this is where I was going with. Was there a catalyst that forced you to slow down?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I couldn't walk in April.
Well, that'll slow you down.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's
That'll
like,
do it.
and I remember thinking to myself, because like when you work in the event industry, you have periods of blitz and then periods of like when things are more quiet. And like last September till like March was like really a lot was happening. And I remember telling myself like in April, I need to slow down. And then I realized I ended up making still a lot of plans in April and not really slowing down. But then my back injury really forced me to slow down. And then that's why I was like really started to like take time with myself and be like, okay, like, hey Tony, where are we going in life? What's the, like, I spend time with myself, asking questions, writing down like, like thoughts, ideas, and just seeing like, but because I was doing so much, I got hurt and it forced me to slow down, and now through that I discovered like, like my love for yoga, like hot yoga is the best. You go there, it's warm, you stretch, and then like you always settle at the end of class too, and just like the stillness from it that you get afterwards, just like, and interestingly enough, during yoga classes now, I also find solutions. And so what I used to use stereo for the extended like marathon sets, I get now through yoga, and it's, I think like you say, some people it's running, some people might be painting, something. Finding a healthy routine that forces you to slow down is the best way to check in with yourself.
I had the same experience with something that forced me to slow down. But first you asked, how can we recognize we're living a trauma? You probably felt that when you talked about abuse from your father. For me, shame was a big part of the trauma. So with my story about my childhood and my father abuse too, all my childhood I felt ashamed of this side of my story. So when people would ask me, my father was Syrian, would ask me like my origin, I would only tell my Algerian side from my mother. I didn't want to open that door. I felt like ashamed and I didn't want to open that story. And for years there was a lot of shame being like a victim, let's say. And I think a lot of people that live traumas are ashamed, and that's when you tend to maybe cope with other things that are more negative and destructive. So shame is a very, very powerful emotion.
Shame is
if you feel
heavy.
exactly,
Yeah.
if you feel shame about a situation, it might be traumatic.
Bingo.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because I remember telling friends recently that I'm tired of not speaking up. I'm tired of like not sharing my story, like, and not like publicly, but just to my friends. There's a lot of people like that I've known for years, and I've never opened up about like the dark side of my
When
struggles.
you said like not being a burden, that's shame. Not
Yeah.
feeling shame
Yeah.
about something.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, you know what? No, I want to start telling my story.
That's awesome.
I'm like, I want my friends to understand me better.
I resonate with that. Like, that's honestly where this project has gone for me, I think on a subconscious level, and like you just triggered me to realize that, where I've told my friends like certain things about my upbringing. They obviously know, like when I was living in New York, I was like questioning my sexuality, and they know like about my relationship with my father. But there are other things that I haven't shared with them where it's like, no, I in order for me to do that, I have to force myself to do it and put myself in situations like this, where it's like, no, in order to get my story out, I have to either publicly do it, not because I want the attention, but because I have to put myself in uncomfortable situations to be like, no, if I'm going to share this, it has to come out this way. And being ashamed of telling like my friends or even bringing this up in therapy, it's been like, no, that's the indicator that there is something here And what's super interesting about shame, what I've learned for myself, is when I confront it, I know there's somebody else out there. By me sharing my struggle with shame, it might be able to help them with their struggle with shame. And now we've got this positive domino effect of like, wow, shame is so dangerous when it's not dealt with or confronted. It's taken people's lives. Like, let's be honest, most of the suicidal thoughts I've had have come from shame. But when I confront them or I have the tools or I speak about it, it like, instead of the volume being at 10, it's like, wow, that is way less scary. It's like this big monster underneath my bed. And now it's like, nope, it's a lizard. You know, it's way more easy to get your arms around it in that sense.
And shame, obviously, it's a big factor. And a way to break it, you just said it. For me, at least, it was sharing it. And it's very counterintuitive because you're ashamed of sharing your story, so it's very stressful. But for me, the forced that I had to take a step back and I was a little bit forced was losing my job. So I was like having a lot of free time and it made me reflect a lot. And it took, again, a few years. Like I was on this journey that I was gonna get better, but you know when you try to stop drinking like for 6 months and you just stop the symptom, I say.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, stop relapsing, and I wasn't like really understanding why. And it's only when I shared on my blog, for the first time I shared the story about my father, that was like, from 1 second to the other, I felt like 10 times lighter. And something like started in my mind. It was so powerful, and I still get shivers because 4 months later, I stopped alcohol, and I didn't like, it wasn't even hard.
Wow.
Like something was like untangled in my mind, and it was sharing it that felt, and as for you, I used like a very public way, because for me it was easier to put it out there and then talk to people because they had the backstory, then going from one to the other, but everyone's different, so for other person it might be easier to talk in person. But yeah, to break the shame, for me at least, and sharing it was the best way to do it.
Yeah,
I agree. Like, obviously, like,
and it even gets like for me, it started there with alcohol, but I was still like consuming, using MDMA, ketamine, and I wasn't really planning on quitting. It's funny when I think about it, because for me, alcohol was the big monster, and I dealt with it. The dragon was dead. So I said to myself, I'm gonna continue having my little pleasure, and it was fine. And it's only like this year, about 7 months ago now, in February, that I dealt with the coming out, the being outed trauma. So I was just like in a group, therapy group, and we were talking. It was 10 men from the LGBT community. We were talking about our coming out story, and I was talking about that, and I just realized that when I was telling them that event that happened to me, like when I was 22, it was still unresolved. That's when I clicked that, oh, like there's something, and they told me there might be something there.
Hey, does anyone else see that in the room? It's right there.
Yeah. So I eventually had the occasion to talk to my sister, and she didn't realize, because for her, like, she just did that as a sister that wanted to deflect the attention. It was never to like hurt me or to because I was gay. It was just like a sister thing, even if it was very not something you would want to do. But for her, it wasn't in a malicious way. She apologized, and I felt that she was very like concerned, and she even asked me how I dealt with it and how I dealt with like my homosexuality, like all the way through childhood. And I remember getting in my car, and I felt another like very powerful emotion, and I knew that I was not going to take any drugs at that point. and it wasn't even planned. So I was just like in my car, and I was like, that's what was left.
You made the connection so fast.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it wasn't hard. So that's what I want to focus, because a lot of people struggle with relapsing, and like even in my friends, they come to me like, I stopped drinking, and it's hard. Like I see them struggling, and I've been through that. You've been through that. The only thing for me that made it not so hard was really to find what was really bothering me, and telling it's the truth. Like I wasn't planning on quitting, and
I'm gonna ride this horse until the fucking wheels come off.
it wasn't like I wasn't planning.
It wasn't in the plans. We didn't have it in the itinerary.
But when I did that repairing, it just made sense. Like I didn't feel like maybe ashamed. I didn't feel the need to consume anymore.
Wow.
So shame was like broken down a little bit.
That's huge. And I think it's so interesting, and we all probably experience this, I know I do, is we might not be able to see it, but by talking about it, maybe someone else can see it and be like, oh no, there's the thing. And we're just, because we are in our bodies, or we're not in our bodies, and we're just in the weeds, so to speak, we can't see the view, and all it takes is somebody else to point it out.
Yeah, sometimes a psychologist or just a group, your friend, they're gonna tell you like, oh, this is this is heavy.
I did a workshop, I think like it's been over a year now, that was called like shadow work.
Oh, amazing.
And I was really curious about it. I was like, okay, like what is this? And then basically in that workshop, we were guided into looking inwards at something about us that if people found out, we'd feel shameful about. You know, and then I noticed in that moment, I was like, oh shit, I gotta work on this. You know, and then I didn't realize at the time how much power it had over me, because I'm just going through my everyday life, my routine, and then you know, things are just tucked away for so long, and it goes back to this whole like, you know, slow down and stillness. And that workshop was really just, you know, I took time, not knowing, like I wanted to go discover what shadow work was. I was just like curious about it, and then it became one of the most like it wasn't healing in the moment. It showed me what I needed to heal, you know, and then I still had to do the work, you know. And I think that's also like doing the work is scary, because you have to face it.
Yeah.
You have to face the darkness. You have to face the whatever you have to face, you know. And just a month ago, I was in a dark period again, you know, just accumulation from so many different sides of things, and just me being so focused on just like my physical recovery. I was so focused on just like, you know, getting back in shape and like healing my back. Everything else was just like pushed to the side. And it was like a good like 6 months of like heavy shit that I just like, I'm like, I'm not dealing with this right now. I'm not dealing with this right now.
You don't have the bandwidth, mentally and emotionally.
No, and then you know, we had From Republic, our music festival, and the festival itself, we do a lot of workshops. We do, you know, yoga, breath works, all these things during the day, and then it goes into the party. And it was so powerful that when I came back to the city, you know, I was just like, I went back down a dark path, because I was like, oh, that's over now. That high is over. I'm back to this bullshit. And then I'm like, but then all the things that happened on Front Republic showed me that I need to work on these things. And then I started facing every single one by one. I had tucked away so much on the side. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this, you know. And then I'm like, oh no, I need to deal with this now. And then it was a struggle, because it was just like, it's so easy to not.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like, fuck. But I wanted to. I didn't want to have toxic, you know, patterns anymore in my life. I didn't want to have triggers anymore, you know. And you know, it's interesting how it happened. I faced the easiest thing first.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
a small
Smart.
victory.
yeah.
Smart.
But just because, like, I guess just the way I function, I was just like, oh, let's get things checked off the, you know, and I'm like, okay, this one's quick, this one's quick, this
Yeah.
one's quick, and then it's like, funny enough, let's say if I had this like a list, let's say that the heaviest stuff was not even on the original list. Is as I started healing a small thing and then a bigger thing and a bigger thing and a bigger thing, then I'm like, at one point I thought I was done, and then I'm like, oh shit, no, I'm not.
You found more.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, like this is like, I was like, and then that's why like I realized I realized just recently the trauma I have from like the war in Lebanon and like 2006, and that's why like also like I haven't even, you know, like when Gaza and Israel started like happening, I never spoke about it because it just reminded me so much of like 2006.
Of course.
And like, as much as I wanted to go to protests and stuff, I couldn't do it. I didn't want to go back to. I was stopping myself because I didn't want to relive that feeling I had in 2006.
It's a trigger.
You know, and it's like, and then, like I said, like I'm going on this list, and I'm just like, as I'm healing, like you said, like you kept healing, and then it made you stop your drug use.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like, as I'm healing as well now, it's like I'm getting healthier and healthier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like funny enough, my drug use is not like I haven't stopped it, but I fixed my relationship with alcohol and drugs.
So do you feel like you've gotten to the root of like the symptoms of what were causing those things?
Yeah, like causing you to consume without care.
Got it. So unconscious consumption.
Yeah.
Got it.
You know, whereas now it's like there'll be an occasion, and like I said, it goes back to me using, you know, alcohol or drugs or whatever to enhance something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it makes it in a sense fun again. You know, it's like oh, you know, like my favorite DJ's coming to town, let me have some fun, but like now it's occasional. You know, it's no longer that like I can go out now and be sober, and then there's times I'm like, oh, you know what, like this is a special night for me, like I want to have a bit more fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then fixing that relationship with all the substances I was only able to fix those relationships after working on my shadows, you know, and it's a lot of work and it's lonely, and I think that's what scares a lot of people. It's while there is, you know, groups and all these things, spirituality workshops or anything that you use, really, it just shows you what you need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
But then you actually have to do the work.
Yeah.
And that journey is lonely, and it's tough, and it's gonna make you want to quit and be like, you know what? There's times I'm just like, you know what? This weekend I can go for a fucking bender.
Yeah.
Just like I'm like,
It's easier to go back because one, it's familiar, you know what it is, and you get to escape again.
yeah. And like, because every now and then, like I'll get that feeling of just like, I want to go on a fuck. I want to rip one weekend, just like pause everything and just like escape, you know.
And I want to highlight something you said that's very, I think, important in our topic. You said like a list of triggers and traumatic events, because I think suicide, it doesn't, like, when you get to this point of having suicidal thoughts, it's not from like one day to another. It's really an accumulation of like years and years of traumas and not dealing with traumas. And when you say a list, it really like struck me, because it's really that, like you just like shove it down, like trauma this year, another trauma, and it accumulate, and then you cope with being more active in the scene, or being more, taking more drugs. So the trauma doesn't get healed, and you just accumulate them, and you get to that final breaking point, which can be a bigger trauma. But the thing is, and what I want to highlight is, when you take care of your trauma like ahead of time and you have a healthy lifestyle, let's say, as for me, for example, right now, like you said, you live like difficult things. Like we all live difficult things. It's not because you dealt with your traumas that your life is going to be perfect. So we all live like difficult moments. But the fact that now I have a structure, like I found, you said like to find a passion. For me, it was sports, biking, being in the outdoor. So finding that, having a routine, like sleeping well, eating well, like I think I take care of my body a lot more than back then. So when I live like those difficult moments, it's impossible for me to think that I'm gonna go through the suicidal thoughts right now. It's like it's a very slow progression. Like to get there for me now, like when I live something, I know what to do, and I think I deal with it like in a proper way, even if maybe it's gonna some trauma are gonna take times to process, but I'm not at the point that a little thing will affect me that much.
And I think that's important that you say, right? You have, right, before it was like one little thing could set you off on it. But now you've built skills, and that one thing is not just one step away from suicidal thoughts. Now it's like, let's say 25.
Yeah.
So you have a much bigger buffer. Like, you know, if you're bowling, you have bumper car or bumpers on the sides where it's not gonna end you. And you have a checklist like, okay, when something breaks, I know to go check here first. Or I'm going to do this. I'm going to go meditate. I'm going to go for a run. Okay, and then I'm going to eat, and I'm going to put good food in my body. Then I'm going to make sure I get enough sleep, right? Because water, sleep, and nutrition are like one of the best 3 things you can do for yourself. So I'm going to take care of all those things, and hopefully that is enough of a foundation to where I'm not going to collapse and relapse onto other things. But again, if you're unaware and you don't have those tools or guidance, it's very easy to fall into those things. So I think what you say is it is important because you have those barriers in place and those tools to mitigate those thoughts from coming back. They may come back again, but you have systems, you have a checklist.
Exactly. So yeah, it's the most important thing I want to highlight that it's very progressive. So maybe you didn't like have suicidal thoughts yet, but it's not something that's gonna happen fast. So I think you have like some red flags before that we can notice. Like we said, shame. Like shame is a big one. So there are things that we can work on before getting there, I think, and just being more open and saying it's normal to feel it. Maybe some people will feel more comfortable like talking about that.
Well, you mentioned it earlier too, how like sometimes we're not even conscious about the traumas we've lived, you know, and then it's just taking one step at a time, you know. I think also like because of the way we live, it's like we want everything quick, you know. These days now, everything is so quick. This is the slowest thing, you know, and people can get discouraged because it's like we said, like I said, out of this some weekends I'm like, bro, I want to just go and fucking rip a weekend because it's quick and easy, you know. But I think you mentioned that once you start finding your pattern about how to heal yourself, because there's not one path. Everybody has their path that they have to figure out, you know. And then I know now that like I'm really dealing with all my life, like my entire life's traumas, and maybe in 2 years something crazy is gonna happen, but now I'll be equipped to deal with it, you know. And funny enough, the more you start healing, you almost get addicted to it.
And that's another thing I was going to point out. I'm glad you brought it up, because the healing journey, the process, it's never ending. And it is something that I found in my men's circles or my groups, that it's like people are like, I need to improve this. I need to improve this about myself. And that can become a vicious cycle in and of itself, where it's like you get to a point where there are some things that you can work on for the rest of your life, and we all will be working on healing ourselves for the rest of our life. But there are some things that you just have to accept and know, like, I have this. Like for me, I have a temper. So I need to know, okay, I need to create space in between, and I just will have that, and I will work on it for the rest of my life. But I know that I just have to accept myself, not accept behaviors, but know that this is something I've been conditioned with, and I have to create barriers in between myself and a boiling point. But I also have to just like, that's a part of me, that's a part of conditioning. Do I love it? No. It's one of the things I'm like most ashamed about. But I know that it was programming I was given, it was learned behavior, but now I know I'm responsible for like taking care of it. And I have to accept that part of myself, and I have to accept that part of myself. It makes it easier for me to do the work. Oh, okay. I got pissed off about my flat tire today. I didn't lose my shit. Wow, big win for me. Okay, cool. $1 in that box. And then I bought a used car 3 days ago. I've been saving up money. My dream car, 1999 Toyota 4Runner. I bought it from the guy, $5,000 cash. I paid him. And I was like, okay, I don't need to put any work into this. But because I checked it, I was like, all right, everything looks good. I bring it to the mechanic because I know it needs an oil change. The guy's like, your front right tire's about to fly off this car. And I'm like, how much is that going to cost? He's like, it's going to be $4,800. So I was like, the fucking car was $5,000. I called the guy back on the phone. I was like, Ramon, what the fuck is going on here? And it was a win because I didn't like scream at him, but you know,
you had to ask this.
I had to ask some questions. Like, what's going on over here? Like the repairs are worth more than the fucking car, my man. But long story short is, I didn't freak out. Where 3 years ago, I might have been on my way over there and I'm going to threaten the guy. Like, I don't want to go to jail. So I ended up paying $1,900 to get the things I needed to get fixed. And like, I was like, cool. Thank God I had the money to do that. And now I have a car that works. And I think framing things, right? I've been learning a lot about how we frame things. Before I used to frame things, victim mentality. Fuck this. I spent $6,900 now. Or how about, thank God I'm so lucky where now I have wheels, and thank God I had an additional $1,900 to pay for that. And I don't say that to be like, oh, I've got some money. I really don't. But I had the resources to be like, frame myself into way worse shit could happen. And now I've like created that space for myself to like, that's a win. Ryan, we won today. You didn't threaten somebody over the phone because you thought they sold you some shit. So it's progress, right? That's 2 years ago, or I would have been in a different place. Now I'm like, I'm just going to make a phone call. I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to be a little stern because I'm allowed to be. I think it's allowing ourselves to have these emotions. And then I'm going to pay it. And you know what? I'm going to go up to Montreal. I'm going to see some awesome friends. And life's still good.
Yeah, it's interesting. Both of you said sometimes we want to go fast, and I lived it too. Like when I started getting like those good habits, I started like reading like those books, happiness podcast. Like I was like 24/7 like trying to learn things because I thought I think I wanted to make up for like.
I'm like, damn, I fucked up. I gotta go.
I gotta go.
Caffeine.
I got such a big list.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work as your body and your mind can absorb. Like sometimes you just need time to integrate everything. And as you said, small victories, just being like doing your sport and eating well, nutriments, sleeping well. That's good. If you do that for 6 months, you don't have to like read all the podcasts. No. That's already a win. So you have to go gradually and don't be hard on yourself because
it has to be a balance.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be, if that, you know, it's the same. It's like if you in a dark place and start consuming a lot and now you're getting better, don't also go into the frenzy of like healing.
Mm-hmm. Just
go at your pace, you know, like
slow
step
and steady.
step by step, you know, like I remember like, you know, this summer when I went to Europe, I brought a book to read, you know, and then it really helped me. But then I didn't jump to the next book right away because I wanted to put into practice what the book was telling me, you know, and that's another thing too. If you're always like, you know, listening to podcasts or always reading books, you're just taking in information, but you're not doing the work yet, you know. And then that's where you need to find like what works for you, you know. And it could be that that person hasn't found it yet, which is why they're trying so many things.
And that's okay,
Exactly,
right? Because you got to taste, you got to try,
You got to see what works.
and see what works. And
Yeah.
the only way you know is by trying.
Yeah.
So you have to go and you have to try.
You know, and like I said, like now I just got my second book, but now it's like, but it's not about healing anymore. This is more about a book about like how to be true to myself with the life I want to live, you know. And it's so it's interesting. It's just, you know, you keep adding little steps, but then at one point, you know, you can. And this is something else I tell my friends. It's like sometimes we're so focused on moving forward, you know. Sometimes it's just stop to turn around and take a view, see see how far you've climbed already. You know, it's like you don't need to reach the peak right away, but like stop and analyze it. I've done a lot of progress in the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
I should be proud of myself. Totally. You know what? I can slow down. I can just like enjoy where I'm at right now, and then when I feel ready, okay, move forward. You know, you have basically your whole life ahead of you, right? There's no reason to try and rush and try to be perfect. Perfect doesn't exist, you know?
It's funny, like the healing journey, we talked about how consumption and drug can be progressive and you don't like really see it being like growing up in your life. The same thing happens with healthy habits. Like for me, at first I was very like intense and trying to get better, but when I took a step back, now I realize it just like becomes natural. I do more sports, like I try new sports, I integrate like more healthy habits, and I'm not thinking about, oh, this is gonna make me more healthy. It's just,
it's your lifestyle.
Yeah, a progression, and as we said, like when you're in a bad space, bad habits like creep in. But in the opposite, if you like take care of that and you start going on the other side on healthy habits, it's gonna creep, but on a good way.
Yeah.
So you're gonna build up that momentum, and you don't have to like consciously think about like doing the work at some point, because it's just because it becomes your life.
Yeah. I had to like, you know, plan going to yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now if I don't go to yoga, I freak out.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, I don't work out because like I want to. I work out because I need to at this point. And it's because I've built these habits, right? It's just unconscious. Okay, wake up, go for a run. Like, wake up, go for a swim. Okay, I know if I eat fried chicken, it's not going to end well for me. Just like, it's not.
I love fried chicken.
Yeah, it's not like fried food, or if I have like, I'm lactose intolerant, so like certain things, it's just, I'm not going to feel good.
Yeah.
But I know if I eat the things I'm supposed to, okay, I'm going to feel better, I'm going to be in a better mood, I'm going to just be set up more for success, and it becomes a part of who you are. Like you're saying.
Exactly.
And subconsciously, right, snowball effect, I did this, like there are still some days, don't get it twisted, I have to literally fucking throw myself out of bed and like get the shoes on because there's distractions and I have ADHD, and she's like, no, shoes go, don't even think, like I run out the door. like hit my shoulder, it's like, no, I have to get going, otherwise it won't happen. But the more you do it, the better it gets, the easier it gets.
Just a small example for today. Like yesterday, I went out to a small Halloween party, nothing crazy, but I was still a bit tired this morning.
Same.
I forced myself to do a little 30 minutes of indoor biking, and I knew that it was going to help me, and because I had that experience, and it helped me.
Yeah.
Like now I'm more awake. So I have those systems. If I didn't have a good like night of sleep, I'm going to try to do that, and there are ways now that I can manage those stress. Before, maybe, I don't know, I would have taken a glass of wine.
I still today, I was like, all right, I didn't sleep last night, and I noticed, I was like, oh, I'm kind of anxious, let me go get a joint, I'm going to smoke. It's like, you know what I really need? I just need to take like 5 deep breaths and regulate myself,
Yeah.
and then I don't need it.
Exactly.
Like, okay. Yeah.
Exactly, it's easy. It was easy back then
But
to
that's-
go on that route.
But that's because I know and I'm aware of like, all right, I have these tools, I'm going to try and use them.
And one thing I that worked for me too was I did this system of like 80-20,
That's smart.
you know? And now it's like 90-10, like maybe even 95-5, you know. But I started at 80-20. I'm like, don't be hard on yourself if some days you're not, you know, like, it's okay to be like, you know what, I'm gonna eat junk food
Totally.
you know what I mean? I'm like, you know, it's a form of self-care too. If you're trying to be 100%, and that's why I think also a lot of people, when they go cold turkey on drugs and they relapse,
100%.
because it's like they're just stopping the consumption.
The symptom.
But not looking at like, let me fix the relationship instead, you know. And then so that's why, like, when I was on my journey, like, to like slow down my drug use, I gave myself a chance to be like, hey, every now and then it's still okay, you know, instead of being like, I'm not doing it for 6 months, and then you hit a breaking point where you start doing it again just because like you're too hard on yourself. And sometimes we're so demanding on ourselves too that we send ourselves spiraling for no reason.
For sure.
You know, give yourself some love, give yourself, you know, care, and be like, go at your rhythm, you know?
It's interesting that you say that, because me too, when I stopped, I told myself that I could allow myself to like have a drink or consume if there was a big occasion. So I think that motivated me at first. So just being like flexible, it like I was more hopeful, let's say, in my journey. But once you pass those 3 months, 6 months, a year, now I don't really see myself going back. But just having that openness, I think it was easier a little bit.
Because like I did a cold break, but not, I knew that I was gonna go back to using, but I just wanted to fix the relationships. Because like at one point, like in 2022, I was like using speed every weekend just because I was doing so much, and I'm just like, oh, like it started so out of nowhere. I was just like, I'm tired. You know what? I'll take a little quarter before I go out this weekend, and then it's like, because I did it once, I started like, doing it again, and I was like, whoa, like, okay, I'm like, let's fix that. It was, instead of being like, okay, I need to stop speed for the rest of my life. It's like there's times I'm just like, you know, this is a 24-hour marathon of dance music. I need something to keep going. I'm like,
Coffee's not cutting it.
And like you said, by allowing myself, by not going into like a definite like, it's over forever, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah. And I think it's important to give ourselves grace in all aspects of life. But I also want to say, like, if you're somebody who's struggling and like there's obvious like addiction problems here, and that isn't something that is going to work for you, and you know it's not going to work for you, and you need to go seek help, seek assistance. I don't want that to be convoluted with, hey, this person addict, like they need to go cold turkey, they need to go seek treatment. That's fine. If you're somebody that knows yourself and needs that, you need to do that for you. But there are also other people who like we said, functional alcoholism. Like if you have the control and you know yourself that you can give yourself grace, then if that system works for you, absolutely run it. But I do want to make sure that there's a distinguishment. I'm not giving mixed messaging to like people. Basically, it's giving somebody an excuse like, no, I'm working on it. It's like if you smoke cigarettes, like, I'm going to quit in February. It's like, bullshit, you're not going to quit in February. We're going to have the same conversation next February.
But it's the same sense of like, okay, let's say you still smoke a pack, bring it down.
100%.
You know, it's
gradual.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Gradually.
But there's cases like, you know, I do have a friend who's right now going through almost like a year and a half like addiction, where it's like, no, you need to maybe something a bit more extreme.
So what?
Case by case.
How do we approach that with people? And I know we're like probably over a million years on time. But this is an important topic, and I want to talk about this. How do we approach that for somebody who like we know that they're unconsciously using? How can we help them in a supportive way?
So I'll use my example, and with my friend, it's like when it really becomes damaging to their lives. Okay. You know, like let's say when I was consuming a lot, like I wasn't self-destructing my entire livelihood. You know, it was just more like, oh shit, there's an issue here, let me work on it. But this, you know, my friend, it's like, oh no, like if you don't stop this train now, like you are putting your life at risk. So when you're like, I think we have to be careful. If someone's becoming a danger to themselves or even like society. Let's say if someone drinks all the time but they keep driving it, that's where it's like more like professional help is needed. You know, like when I was talking to my friend, I told him like, I know you want to stop, but you need rehab. It sucks. I'm like, but you need to go, because if not, it's like you're allowing yourself to go right back into it, because it's like it's case by case, you know.
And they're tough conversations to have. Like, let's not get it twisted. Sitting down with somebody that you love and care about to be like, hey, we have to call out the elephant in the room here. But I think doing that coming from a loving and supporting place, like, hey, I'm not here to shame you. I want you to win. I want you to, like, I want you alive for the future. And I want to support you on this journey.
So I'm going to use my own experience that I was, so it happened to me. So when it was in 2020, so a friend of mine that's good in finance, we decided just to sit down because I was having trouble financially, but I think he knew why, but he didn't tell me at first. So we just sat down and he helped me like do a budget and go through finance. And I was so stressed. I remember I poured myself a huge like glass of wine during the meeting and I was shaking. And like we went through, like when you said the line of drugs, alcohol and substance, it was over $3,000 per month at that point. So that was a big I was like
Fuck, okay.
I was 50,000 in debt. So I was like really like deep, and I had a good job, so it was like a lot of money that was going through that, and it made me a big intervention. Like it was uncomfortable, like he said, you obviously have a problem, and like a lot of hard things to hear. At first, like I don't think I was receptive. Like I was like, oh, like I didn't expect to have that conversation, but that conversation really changed like the course of things.
Wow.
So even if you think like it's a hard conversation and the person's gonna hate you or they're not gonna be comfortable, it's okay to have it. And sometimes there's things we can do, but sometimes we need professional help. So that's very important. Even if someone voiced like suicidal thoughts, it's okay to refer them to a hotline, and I've done that in the past because it's a lot to take in.
Yeah, and we also, like, I'm not a mental health professional, and no one else is here that I'm aware of. Like, there are some situations we're not equipped for. Exactly. Not only is it just heavy, it's like, I'm not the person to come to with this. I would love to help you, but I can't. But taking them to going with them to those places is super.
So it's okay to say like, I notice you have a problem, and like I'm gonna guide you to the resources. I think that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah, it's like I told my friend, I'm like, I'll go with you to the rehab center. Like just giving that person support. We're not professionals, but we can help them get to the professionals if they're ready.
Totally.
You know, that's the other thing too, that sometimes like you can tell someone something like, hey, this is an issue we need to work on, but don't put pressure on them. It needs to come from them. But they need to lead it, and then you're just like behind them to keep them moving forward and not falling backwards.
But this seed has been planted, and for me it took another year maybe after that conversation, but it was for me a very important conversation. But slowly I thought about it, and I made some changes.
Dude, that was crazy. I didn't know that was that much.
No judgment. No judgment.
I'm like, now my budget line's not so bad.
No, I'm not gonna say it, but I was sharing a lot, but I was also consuming a lot. So I'm not gonna.
Fair. You know, when you're buying in bulk, going to Costco. I don't know if you have Costco up here or like Sam's Club. Like, you get a lot for what you pay for, but it's still a lot of money you spend there. I also want to point out, last thing, and then we can wrap it up, is if you're somebody that has a friend that you're trying to help, right? Because I've been in this situation where I have friends where we've been on the phone with their parents, right? We've had the interventions. We've taken them to rehab. We've gone into their homes and helped them to like literally take them to the doctor, arm over shoulder, get in the car, incapacitated. There is a point in time where you as a friend who's trying to help somebody, like, or your words are falling on deaf ears and you can't help those people. And I'm going to give my perspective on it, and you all feel free to share, but it's okay to draw a boundary for yourself and say, I've done all I can do. I've gone as far as I can go, whatever that means for you, whether it's financially, whether it's emotional support, whatever, like speaking with their parents, interventions. I've gone as far as I can go. I can no longer help you. I listened to Rich Roll, who's a podcaster out there as well, and he was somebody who struggled with alcoholism, and his parents told him, it got to a point where they're like, hey man, I just can't be in your life anymore. Like we've tried to help you, and like if you're going to continue down this path, it's not something I can be a part of. And I want to tell people that it's okay. You're not a bad friend for protecting yourself. Boundaries are super healthy, super important. And if you've done all you can do, and you can look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and be like, I tried. It's not not your responsibility, and it's not your fight to fight. So that's where I stand on the situation, because people can feel responsible and guilty and like they're not getting better, and like then they take it upon themselves, and then they feel shame, and it's an old spiral for them.
Exactly.
Yada yada yada. So I just want to call that out.
There has been some cases where I needed to let the person hit rock bottom, because it's like we tried to put the warning signs, but it's like, oh, you know what, go in the ditch, and then luckily when they hit the ditch they climbed back out, and then I was ready to be present again, but there's like there's times I'm like, okay, I've done what I can. Now it's on them. And then what if they do start coming out of it, I'll be right back. I'll be there again. But I had to let them hit rock bottom,
Yeah, I had the same situations. You're totally right. And you even remember having this talk with my doctor, who said it's okay to like sometimes have boundaries, because I was trying to, for me it was my sister, I was trying to help her like with alcohol, and the whole family was affected, and she was telling me that it's okay sometimes to like let the person do her thing, and even if I felt that I knew like the answer and I knew how to help her because I was feeling better myself, she wasn't ready, and as you said, she had to hit rock bottom to finally realize, and now she's feeling better. So
amazing. Not that she hit rock bottom, amazing she's feeling better.
But she had to do her journey. Like I had to take a step back, and now that she's back on track, as you said, I'm back in her life.
Nice, amazing. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I actually had to do this like about 2 weeks ago, where I had to let go of a situation and walk away from it because it was asking too much of me and like you said, like it's falling on deaf ears, and it's like I'm like, why am I still giving? And I remember like thinking to myself, I'm like, I've given so much, and then I was like, I felt bad walking away.
Shame.
Yeah. But then I realized, no, this is freeing. Because now, interestingly enough, maybe I'll be available for somebody else. And then I also noticed this situation was triggering me. It was getting me rageful. It was getting me upset. And I was like, wait a minute, this has gotten too much now. And now it's affecting my everyday. And I'm like, I don't want this. And it's, if the people are not willing to work on themselves and like move forward, it's like, it's okay to let go, and like you said, the shame, the guilt, like I felt guilty. I'm like, wow, I'm really going to walk away from them. Like, and it's like, yeah.
I also want to point out that in that topic, it's also okay if you're going through a like very hard time not to be available for other people. I remember when I was going through my hardships, I felt bad because I used to be like the one that was pretty good at like taking care of people, listening to their story. I was like someone that was easy access, I think. And during those years, I like took care of myself, and I felt bad. And a lot of times I realized, I haven't asked like this person how like life is going like for 6 months, and I told my friend, and they're like, it's okay, like you have to, we want like a stronger Fadi, they said. Like you have to take that time, and it's okay like to sometimes take the time for yourself and not be available for everyone.
Totally. There's a quote out there I've seen that says, "You take care of you, and I'll take care of me, so we can be present, or we can take care of each other." Not one taking care of the other person as codependency, but hey, I'm going to go take care of me so that way I can come back and be the best version of myself. I think that's the quote. You take care of you, I'll take care of me, so we can be the best versions of ourselves. And with that, I want to bring this to a closing and say thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time out of your busy lives to sit down with me, to give back to this community, to commemorate your friend Gail and the member of the community here in Montreal. And if people want to know more about you, learn more about what it is that you do, where can they find you?
Well, on Instagram, so my blog Fabulous Fadi, so we've teamed up, and we're all teaming up this month, so yeah, you can find me there.
People can follow Front Right. We've actually launched a new media team of writers, and we actually have like our first like mental health and articles coming up soon, and then we're gonna, I guess, always have a little, every now and then, like some topics that we're gonna bring up, so they can follow Front Right.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys again for taking the time out of your days. I think this is a super important topic. I really hope that this is gonna help people, impact them, just raise awareness about it, and that way we can hopefully stop other situations from happening where people are taking their lives, and hopefully improve people's awareness, mental health, well-being, for the overall, not just the community, but to give back to people who are struggling. So,
and I just want to say one last thing too, because we talked a lot about consumption, and we didn't touch on this, but like sometimes you go also in phases where you consume more, and then you come out of it, and sometimes it's good to just check in on a friend. Sometimes just see if it's like, a little party phase because they're celebrating success, or is there something else happening that's making them, and I think like finding a way to check in with friends, like, like create a
safe space.
Yeah, a safe space, but not a routine, but I started, my friends and I just actually started this week called Waffle Wednesdays. I don't know why it's called Waffle Wednesdays, but every Wednesday now we just send each other videos and give each other little life updates.
Nice. Something that's fixed on calendar.
Yeah, just so, because sometimes we're so busy, and I've gone sometimes like 3 months without talking to really good friends of mine, because it's like you want to try to make the time, but it's like it's always like, you know what, tomorrow. And then when we actually started this thing, people were like, why don't we just do this like all the time? And I'm like, no, it won't work for me, because if we don't say it's Wednesday, then it's any day, then I know that like I'll say, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, and next thing you know, it's like, oh shit, I didn't check in on Frankfurt, like, it's like, so I like this little like, a little, just a check-in, and this way like we give each other life updates, and like just for us what works now, it's like doing a video so we see the person too, and not just have like text messages.
I think that's really smart. I do that with my men's group. We have a monthly standing call, and if you can't make the call, you got to send a video and let us know where you're at. And it's just, that's the accountability factor, and by mandating and having that accountability for community, inherently people feel like they have community, which ultimately, like, that snowball effect of gives people purpose. They can fall back on, okay, structure, life, I have friends, people care about me inherently, and it can create those buffers from like when you're having negative thoughts or when negative events in life happen to keep you from getting to that, I'm gonna kill myself stage. So
yeah, I just want to thank you, because I think it's a very important topic, and especially in the music scene. We often hear like people going out saying like they escaped on the dance floor, so it's a little bit telling. So I think it's good to highlight those topics, and we'll continue on that trend.
Actually, the article that we're writing next is about why it verbalizes like why we love the music scene so much, and how it's like healing it therapeutic without noticing it because of the rhythm, the patterns, the science behind it too. So yeah, people might the article might be out by the time this is online, but yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. I think that's really important, right? The community has all these healing aspects to it, and like my purpose is not to shed. There are darks and light sides to every community. There's honestly, in my opinion, I think there's way more positives about the electronic music community than there are negatives, which is why it's so awesome. And the fact that we still need to acknowledge and not sweep the elephant under the rug, or try to, like, hey, there are things here, and to the point that you were making, it just slipped my mind because I haven't eaten food in like hours.
I said that we escaped.
I'm like, you mentioned fried chicken. I was like, oh,
I'm fucking starving. But the escapism is always going to be present there. But I think for people for all of us to ask is, when we're going to escape, it's okay, but just have an intention and understand what's the motive behind my escapism. And it's okay to escape as long as you come back and you're aware, like, there are still things, there's always going to be work and things need to go on, but to just have intention around it. So thank you guys so much for your time, and we'll end it there because I gotta eat.
I got some food. But thank you again, my friend.
Of course, thank you guys.